Good morning. I'm Tim. I'm the lab tech for back here in the working lab. Today what we're going to do is go over and show you how to do your PVC operation in your courses. Now, typically everything is in the box. Again, like everything else here, students have a tendency of not telling me when things are dried up or broken or whatever. Let me know, because I only check it once or twice during the semester. Your toolbox, your glues, your tape, your pen. Now you may all have a different cutter, but they all basically work the same way, and I'll show you that. Again, supply your gloves and glasses, your reaming knife, some sandpaper, it's normally in a roll, and you're going to have to ask the staff for the fittings as well as the pipe. Now the pipe is always back in the tool crib. We always want to use whatever is available back there in PVC 3/4 inch. All right. Sometimes it comes in 5-foot lengths, sometimes it will come in a foot length. Just use it up until we have nothing available. And you'll see on your blueprint it states 4 inches. Well, if you make it 3 inches, nobody's going to lose sleep over it. Or if it's 6 inches, nobody's going to lose sleep over it. Okay, so therefore, we get the fittings. You got your pipe. You got your tools laid out. Paper is normally up underneath the table here somewhere. If it isn't, let the staff know and we'll get it for you. Now, you're going to follow your step-by-step instructions. But I'm going to show you how it should be accomplished properly, and this is how you're going to be evaluated. So please remember to perform the steps so that you don't have to do this twice. All right, first of all, get your gloves and glasses on. And remember, being a working lab, there's always going to be something or somebody in and around your area. Now, I don't need to tell you, because you should be already familiar, that any of these fluids, if they get on your skin, it's going to burn you a little bit. If it gets in your eyes, it's definitely going to burn you, and you know where all the safety equipment is. But if you have forgotten, the eye wash is down by automotive. If you just go straight down the hallway, you run dead into it. If there's a wash basin out back, and we can wash and flush your eyes out. But if you're using the right protective equipment, you're not going to have a problem here. All right, the first thing that we want to do is lay out our equipment, and we're going to sit here, and for our instructional situation, we're going to just use 6 inches just like on the blueprint. Now, just mark it. And you notice that I'm not getting really tight, but you're going to notice on your blueprint that you have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces that you got to cut. All right. Set that off aside. Now, the problem is there's so many of these different PVC cutters. The PVC cutters are pretty basic. All right. You notice that to operate this one, you have to pull it out. Now, there's a rigid one in one of the toolboxes that has to be, the handle has to be pulled up, and there's this idiot mechanism on top that you got to pull at the same time. So two things have to operate at the same time to release the lever. But otherwise, it works the same way. As I cut, it ratchets it down. When I'm done, I just open it up. This is the cheap version. All right, the rigid that you get a hold of is about 60 bucks. These are about 15 at your local Harbor Freight. All right, so what we want to do is we want to center it as much as possible and try to get a straight cut on this. Now, for those that worked with PVC, you know that if you start cutting PVC and it splits on you, if it splits on you, then it's dry rotting. Throw it away because it will eventually break. And you notice that I'm just taking my time. I'm in no rush, and I'm always looking around me to see if there's any students, because sometimes in here it gets a little tight. Now once I have all 4 of my pieces cut here, then my next step is to hone it out. Set that off to the side, get that out of the way. Now, this is the same as reaming, honing, all right? I got a buck knife here, has a little clip on it, and all I'm doing is gently scraping off the inside. Now, somebody is saying, well, what purpose does that serve? The purpose is if you have a lot of debris in there over a long period of time, as that water is flushing through there, it's creating resistance. And then it starts vibrating the pipe. That's what you're trying to cut down. Now, even though you're not going to send water through this, we want to be sure that everything's squared away. All right? So, I'm not taking a lot of pressure on it. I'm just running it through, getting anything off that might be stationary in there from the cutting. And again, a lot of this doesn't need to be done if you keep your tools nice and sharp. In the classroom, though, that's another whole nother story. But again, if you notice that something's broken, empty, clogged, dismantled, whatever, let us know and we'll fix it right up for you. All right, so now we got our 4 pipes cut. Now you take your sandpaper, and the easiest way to do this is just lightly put some pressure on it. Wrap it around the pipe and put some pressure on it. All right, and you want to go 1.5 inches or so. All right, and you're just trying to rough it up. Why? Well, with PVC glue, and we're going to go into this later, but PVC glue, there's a primer and then there's the glue. What that does is a chemical reaction. And with the texture being roughed up, it bonds better. Because there's nothing worse than putting in your drip irrigation system or your drip lines for your house, or the for HVAC, your drain lines, and then it either gets clogged up or it fails to operate correctly and falls apart in midsummer. Now, I'm not trying to get everything off of this, all right? And when you do what is called a dry fit, please do not shove it all the way in there, because you're going to be sorry. You'll never get it out. So what happens is, if you look at your schematic, this is all going to be joined together. But again, your PVC fittings are very smooth. They're even smoother than the pipe. Normally the pipe is outside, it's covered or whatever, but the pipe, the fittings are really smooth. So you just want to rough it up. Don't take a lot of great time in this, but run it over there a couple times so that when it starts to bond, you get nice tight bonding situation on that. All right. Now, if you look at your schematic, it may look like this. Now, there's several schematics out there, so just follow the schematic that you have. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what is known as a dry fit. Now, you notice that I'm just barely setting that in place. All right? Because if I don't, I'll never get this thing undone. And the reason I'm doing this is to save me a lot of hassle down the road. Now, some people think this isn't necessary. True, when you're speaking of something that's this small, I can keep track of everything being level, because what happens is, if I don't have this smooth and locked into place, all right, I'm going to have real problems if I'm doing 200 and 300 feet of this thing. Hell, I may even have problems if I'm doing 60 or 70 feet of it. But what you want to do is lay it out and then come back and mark a line as straight as you can. And you're doing it to every pipe, because with PVC, to make it operate functionally and correctly, it has to be twisted. Well, if you don't twist it when you're supposed to and do the 90 degrees twist on it, the glue and the materials inside here doesn't happen. All right, so everything's marked. Now, at this time, show the staff. At this time, just stop and let one of the staff members know that you're at this point. Then, what you want to do is, you're taking it apart, lay it out so that you know what you got. All right, now it's nothing more than a big jigsaw. Now let's go over here to our primers and our glue. If you get the purple stuff, this is your primer. This is most common. If you buy it in the kit, it'll always come with a primer and a glue, because that's the cheapest method. Over here, you got what is known as red hot blue, all right, glue. Say that 3 times, okay? But when you get it, it all has the chemicals mixed into it. The biggest problem that we have in the classroom is people will take this, open it up, use it, and then leave it like that. Well, this evaporates. So instead of getting 20 people to use it, we get 10 people to use it. All right? And it's very strong, so if you have allergies and stuff like that, let us know. We have masks for you. Okay? Check all the caps and be sure that they've been loosened and that they're ready to go. Now, in this demonstration, I'm going to use half and half on this thing, just to show you that how it all works and how it comes together. In your kit, your toolbox, you may only have one particular type. If you have both, then go ahead and practice using both of them so that you get to understand, because this is a training environment. All right. It doesn't matter where I start. All right. What it does matter is how I'm going to approach this. The first thing I want to do is get my primer together. Now, I know where my line is, and you notice that it will take some of that primer or the ink off. That's all right. Don't worry about that. All right? I'm laying it all down. I'm going to get it all together, and I'm going to just do some of these sections by myself here without going into great detail here. All right, so I got these 2 parts done. Now I want to add my glue. Now this glue comes in different colors. We just happen to have gray here. All right. Again, when you're doing this, do not sit there and leave this can open, because this stuff will harden up. Now remember the twisting motion? You see where they're off 90 degrees? I shove it in there and I twist. And I match that up. Now you want to hold this a little bit, because with the 3/4 inch PVC you don't have a real problem with it. But when you get up above 1 inch and higher, this stuff creates a heat mechanism inside, an action. And it will definitely, if you're not holding this for at least a minute, it can push the tube right out of place. About 30 seconds for 3/4 inch. All right? Notice everything is sealed. It's well done. All right? Nothing too drastic. I don't have drips, runs, and errors all over the place. All right? Remember, this is being buried, but again, you want to make it look professional. All right? So don't be in a big hurry. All right, now my next one. I just keep putting this together until I am complete. And what this primer does is, because it's an alcohol base, retouch that up. Now, it takes a little bit of time for this to dry, but don't sit there and read the newspaper. You will be in problems. Again, I find my line, I rotate, and I hold it. All right. Now at this point, I don't have a lot of problem because I don't have any turns, bends, stuff like that. I just want to be sure that it's all flush. All right. And I'm just kind of holding on to it. All right. And you notice how there's a nice good seal around the cap. If you got stuff pouring all over the place, you're just wasting materials. But you know, it takes some time to practice on this. Okay. All right. I get my next piece. Repeat the process again. And you notice I kind of tilt this, so if anything's dripping, it'll drip down on the paper, not all over our tables. And you notice I'm not in a rush here. It's all coming together. I just kind of line it up. And you notice I all have straight pieces right now. When I get to my 90, then I have a little bit of concern, because if that is off from being square, then anything down the road from that is going to be lifted up by a certain amount of angle. Now, sometimes when you're letting this dry, it'll stick to the paper. All right, you know, things happen. All right, now I'm going to show you, I'm going to close this stuff up. And you notice how I just made that mistake. Sometimes this can, all right, doesn't sit level. If it doesn't, and you go put it back in the box, it will leak all over the place, as you can see in the box before. Now, I like this stuff because it's easy, it's quick, and it really holds a lot better than this stuff does. But if you're trying to do a little home project or repair, this is fine. But you know, this costs about $1, $2 extra. Also, this stuff gels up a lot faster than your standard primer and glue. All right, so I put it in there, pick up my piece. And you notice it can get a little messy sometimes. Okay. Now here comes the vital parts, because now I'm getting it at an angle. All right, I grab my stuff, I push it, I turn it, and I check it on the ground to be sure that it's as level as possible, flush. All right, because like I was saying, if for instance this was off a little bit, tiny bit, 20 feet, 300 feet down the road, that's going to cause you a major problem. You're going to be up a foot by the time you know it. Okay? Dries the same way. Hold it for about 60 seconds, 30 seconds, somewhere around there. All right? You don't want so much that it's blocking the hole, because why? Again, resistance. Anytime you have resistance, then you're going to have problems, because it's going to start vibrating on you. I take my last piece, and you can do this any way you want. But something to think about in the long run is you have to stop and think, how are you putting this together? Because in each circumstance, there may be something a little bit different that's going to cause you problems. Oops. In the long run. Okay? Now, it's sometimes like melting ice cream, you know, you gotta kind of turn this around and keep it from running all over the place. So now I make my last connection. Again, an important factor here is don't go nuts with the glue. But use enough to get the job done. And this is going to take time to practice with. All right? It isn't a one-time shot. Again, I set it in there in such a manner so I can twist it to 90 degrees and check it. Because you got a few seconds to work with it once you put it together in bonds. Now while I'm letting that dry, I want to check to be sure that all my lids are tight. Start putting my stuff back in the toolbox. It all fits in there. And again, if something's broken, you just let us know and we will take care of that as quickly as possible. All right. Now if you got some used stuff that's still good, fine, use it. If not, throw it away. All right, there is your PVC exercise. Now this is pretty simple, all right? But you want to do it in a professional manner, all right? Remember, you're trying to sell a product, all right? And I know this takes a little bit extra time, but ask some people out there that have done this, especially in their yards and stuff like that, and you'll find out, if you're doing this too fast and you're not paying attention, you're going to have a bigger problem down the road when you're dealing with 10-foot and 20-foot lengths of this stuff. Because yes, it does bend a little bit, all right, but with the glue, you're just causing yourself more anguish at the end of your project. Now, I don't want to see you out there beating on other students with these things, all right? Don't bring them home and let your kids play with it, because of course this is all corrosive type material. All right, so when you're done with this, please throw it in the trash and we'll take care of it for you. All right, other than that, this is what you have to do with your exercise. If you have any questions, please be sure that you pay attention to the step-by-step instructions, the layout, and remember, once you do your dry fit, come back and let one of the staff know so we can see it. All right, again, throw this in the trash, roll up your newspaper, throw that in the trash, put back any materials that you might have, such as extra pipe and stuff like that. And another thing to be paying attention to is, I prefer that you not do it down on this table. We're doing it here because it's a larger space for filming. But do it at a desk or outside where there's no flames, i.e. the soldering table or the furnaces, because this is a fuel of some sort. All right, and it does have an explosive value to it. All right, at the end of that, that's the end of the course. Now, what I want you to do, or at the end of the lab, what I want you to do is now take your lab sheet, be sure you got all your protective gear, and come on out to the lab and perform this exercise. You saw it only takes about 15-20 minutes. All right, have a good time. Thank you.